Hello to the side and back. My name is Tokika Uzuru, also known as Toki, and today I will be continuing the introduction to shadow work. Because I already did the research for it, I've written down the stuff, and ooh, hasn't been a month. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a few things out there already. One, yes, I sound like I don't feel good because I'm getting better from not feeling good. And two, that's the reason why I decided to do a fairly easy video. Now watch me take at least 20 minutes to go ahead and do what should be a 10-minute video. If you haven't watched the first part, which is me talking about what shadow work actually is, there you go. Now we can get into it. How to do shadow work. The baseline thing to remember about shadow work is that we are trying to bring light to what we usually hide away, or trying to make sense out of things that we do instinctively, so that when we do mundane tasks or actions, we have a better understanding of what our intent is for such actions. And the first step into doing that is challenging your thought process, behavior, and habits that you just do instinctively. Recognition and healthy criticism are both necessary to being able to grow and heal whatever traumatic wounds you have. Second step, cultivating or developing self-awareness. This might take a lot longer depending on whether you typically in denial of any of your faults, in which that's the ego. But having the self-awareness to realize whether you were the one in the wrong in a specific situation is probably one of the best tools us humans have in growing as people and healing emotional wounds. Step 3, getting your thoughts out, giving your demons some space to breathe. This is where you end up getting to making a choice on whether you want to write it down in like a journal, or do you want to go ahead and use your voice memos and then go through it, or do you want to go ahead and shoot a video and talk about it. Or you could go ahead and go see a therapist and ask if they also record their sessions. Each one has its own reason on why it'd be a good idea and why it would be a bad idea. And it all depends on how safe you feel in the specific area you're doing this in, which you should be feeling safe if you're going to be doing shadow work. So if you don't feel comfortable in telling a friend, you could go ahead and write it down or record it via voice memos or video. And the last step, at least that I wrote down, number 4, practicing gratitude. I really just had to go ahead and search up what gratitude meant because I hear it a lot and it's like you should know what it meant, but I want a better understanding of the word. So I'm just going to go ahead and classify it as the acknowledgement that you overcame something. Think of it as like patting yourself on the back for recognizing and acknowledging the fact that there was a deeper meaning in a lot of the stuff that you do. And just because you think you got to the root of the situation or the root reason on why you specifically do something, does not mean that you are done with it. Because now there's something new that you have to go ahead and work on. Maybe another rabbit hole you have to go down because you just realized, well, the bottom of this rabbit hole ended up with another rabbit hole, so now I have to go ahead and find out why that is there. But that's only if a lot of your instinctual habits tend to be intermingled with each other. So here are like some advice, tips, things that I personally ended up finding very helpful when going through the actual shadow work. I burped. Tip number 1, always keeping your stuff in a safe place. I pointed this out earlier when I was talking about writing it down and giving your demons some air to breathe. But finding out what method was getting the stuff out of your head would definitely help you. For me, writing it down helps because I can go ahead and I think about things when I write them, and it gives me even more ideas. And even though I don't go ahead and finish a specific thought right then and there, when I go ahead and read it back like a few days later, I'm like, you know, now that I am looking at this with like fresh eyes, I left it, I came back, I can actually see where the problem is. Which leads me into my second tip. Giving yourself time. You don't have to go ahead and always go through one rabbit hole a day. Some instinctual habits take a lot longer to find the root cause of. Number 3, which seems like it shouldn't be a problem. Like number 3 seems like we should know this by now, but be completely honest with yourself. What I mean by that is sometimes we go ahead and try to put the blame on other people. Like, oh, they did this, so I acted this way. And this is the reason why we have to go ahead and do shadow work like this. Why did you act this way? Is there something that you weren't understanding when they did that? Did you feel like you couldn't go ahead and tell them what you wanted to tell them? Is that the problem? Sometimes there's no specific person that you can blame for things, but at least knowing where the root cause came from, whether it was a specific person that was like a certain way in your life, or whether it was just a specific event in your life that made you go ahead and think, anytime I see this, I act like this, and that's how I get through it. But overall, it is better to be completely honest and try not to just push the blame on someone else. So this last tip that I have for going through shadow work is actually specifically for when you find out that you have toxic habits and how to go ahead and deal with such toxic habits. So when you go through doing the work, figuring out what the toxic habit specifically is, try to replace it with a neutral habit. Stopping the habit itself is what we're trying to work on here, and then we can go ahead and add on to making a more positive choice when it comes to habits. But it's a lot harder to go from a negative to a positive than a negative to a neutral. Overall, the whole thing is we're changing the habit to something that can actually help us instead of one that continues this cycle of self-sabotage. And that should be all for this video. I think that in the next video I'll go ahead and share like some shadow work journal ideas, or like journal entry ideas and stuff, like specifically for those who want to go ahead and write down what they find when they do their shadow work. And now that I'm done with the video, we can get into the stereotypical YouTuber outro, where I, as a stereotypical YouTuber, would ask you to do the following. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Put it in the comments section below whether you feel like you would be more of a recording person or more of a writing person, or whether you would just rather talk to people about your problems. Once you have subscribed though, If you want to be notified of whenever I post my next video, you can go ahead and click the notification bell and turn it to all notifications. That way you are notified of when I post my next video. I feel like I just said the same thing twice. So it's about time for me and my pained abs to go ahead and go get other stuff done today. So I will be leaving this video by saying I've been your host, Toki, and this is Toki saying Toki out.